Okay, well, I think I'm going to discuss a mix of topics today because I wanted just to focus on the economy again, but there's just so much going on with the ongoing riots and the civil unrest that I can't avoid talking about that. So I guess I'll start there with an update on a story from yesterday about the guy in Austin who was shot and killed. This was somebody at one of these marches that were marching illegally in a public street, blocking traffic, and when a car was coming through the crowd, this guy ended up getting shot. The details were not clear yesterday. It looked yesterday, based on, and I didn't want to go out on a limb here, but I was just saying that, based on how things looked from the video we saw, it kind of looked like the driver was an aggressor, but still I was saying, you're walking in the middle of the street. You can't exactly get mad at people for driving through. Well, now it turns out that that might not be the case. There are now people saying, and certain reports coming out. It's still unclear, but this is another side that's come out that apparently this guy shot 5 times at the car first before the guy in the car shot back, which would make more sense. Just shooting at him because he saw him with a gun doesn't really make much sense because, open carry is legal in Texas. So I don't think that someone who is carrying concealed in their car, if they see someone, on the street, with a rifle slung over their chest, I don't think their first instinct is to, shoot to kill. So it makes a little more sense to me that this guy might have actually been pointing his gun at him at the very least, done something threatening or intimidating, or else why, as someone who carries a gun, would you put yourself in that position? I mean, you have tremendous legal risk in defending yourself in this country. Even if you're not in the wrong, the legal bills really pile up. And so even a purely selfish person really has no interest in shooting into a crowd unless they truly do fear for their life and believe that they will be able to defend those actions in court. And now the police have actually released the driver with no charges so far, which of course the lefties are using to prove once again how bad the cops are and stuff like that, how they're letting this murderer go. But to me, this just seems to add to the case that this guy, Garrett Foster, was, acting in an aggressive manner. Or else, why would the cops pass up an opportunity to charge this guy? I mean, it's not like the police are the greatest friend of concealed carry holders. But given the amount of media attention that this story has gained, I wouldn't be surprised if the local prosecutor comes back and charges this guy with something later just to appease the mob. Prosecutors often are very ambitious people who want to make a name for themselves, and prosecuting someone in a high-profile case is a good way to raise your profile. It's actually one of the many flaws with our criminal justice system, is that there is this very perverse incentive, and prosecutors really do look at convictions as sort of a game. They see the number of convictions next to their name as some kind of badge of honor. They don't see themselves, for the most part, as people who are trying to do the work of justice. A prosecutor would never drop a case against somebody because they thought they were innocent if they had enough evidence to where they thought they could convict them. That's all they're thinking. Prosecutors are out to get you. Prosecutors want to throw as many people as they can in jail because that proves that they're tough on crime. And so if there really is nothing that they can charge this guy with, then he definitely didn't do anything wrong. It's interesting. A lot of, apparently this guy who was shot, Foster, was some kind of libertarian activist in the area. And I'll be interested to hear if Scott Horton discusses this, since Scott Horton is probably the most prominent libertarian from Austin, Texas, so he might have known this guy. But, a lot of people are trying to, I think in vain, defend this guy's actions because, well, if you're just, if he didn't do anything and he just got shot because he happened to be there, well, then, that sucks. Then that's something that's unjustifiable, in which case I would hope that the driver gets prosecuted. But if it's true that he, shot at the car, then you've got that coming to you. Sure, open carry is perfectly legal, as it should be. Owning a gun's okay. Walking around with an AK-47, I have no problem with. Actually, it was an AKM. I don't think it was a milled AK-47. But anyway, that's a digression. The moms demand people. Sharon Watts are coming out and saying, "Yep, this Garrett Foster guy, he went out with a gun and he got killed. That's what happens if you carry guns." Obviously, I'm not saying that. This is not a two-way issue. The issue is, did you shoot at somebody and did they shoot back at you? It's very hard to call a car driving down a public road, an aggressor. If you're walking in the middle of their road, then that they have a right to be on. Well, I hate to tell you, but you're the aggressor. And if you start shooting at them because they're very slowly driving through this this crowd, this mob of people, well then you can't exactly be upset when they shoot back and kill you. Our actions in life have consequences. We don't always like the consequences, but you have to accept them if you're going to take actions like this. But the big takeaway from this story is not really the specifics. It doesn't really matter, who, in my opinion, in the grand scheme of things, who this guy was, what he was doing, whether he shot first or the driver shot first. The fact of the matter is these things are going to keep happening. Okay, you are not going to see mobs of people marching through the streets blocking traffic every day and not expect there to be consequences. People are going to get mad. What if somebody just really have been waiting for all month, they want to see their daughter's ballet recital or something, and they're late leaving work, and then they get on the road, and then all of a sudden they can't get anywhere because an Antifa mob has blocked their path. I'm not saying that justifies killing anyone, but you're invoking the rage of ordinary Americans. And so when you do that, you awaken marginal people, and there's going to be some tragic consequences to all of this. And as all this continues to escalate, people are going to become more defensive. They're going to hopefully start expecting this more. But unfortunately they won't respond correctly. They won't say, standing in the road's pretty dangerous. Let's not do that anymore. What they're going to do is more and more of them are going to start showing up armed like this guy, and they're going to be quicker on the trigger. And when they do that, they're going to be much more likely that, the innocent Americans that they're aggressing against fight back. There's a video going around of a guy getting out of his car and punching, someone from a mob who was marching through his neighborhood in the face because they're blocking traffic, and he says, "Get the F out of my neighborhood." And that's the attitude that ordinary Americans are going to have. And I guess I should thank the left for choosing such a dumb way to try and promote their message. Sure, you're going to get the message out there, but nobody's going to want to listen. Reminds me of how back in the late 60s, the anti-war movement, which, I'm a big fan of, obviously. I don't like wars. I think the Vietnam War was very dumb. They made a very dumb strategic mistake in shaming these draftees who were sent over to Vietnam to fight, became mentally scarred, and then came back, and they were just made pariahs by the left. And people for decades after, resented that and, wanted no part in the anti-war movement, because the anti-war movement meant, blaming some of the victims of the war. And those were men, who at the age of 18 were enslaved by the state and sent off to fight the war. So if you do something similar now, where you just, blame ordinary drivers on the streets for whatever problems you think black people have to deal with, and then say, well, this is the inconvenience in your day is very, is minute compared to the problems that black people deal with every day. Oh, give me a break. Yes, Kaepernick and Bubba Watson and all the other light-skinned black men who are on TV, crying about how oppressed they are in their multi-million-dollar mansions. They really are just, they suffer so much compared to, that elderly white couple who was, not allowed to cross the bridge, who were trying to just get home back to their suburban 1,100 square foot house with a one-car garage. You really show those white oppressors who's boss. So when I look at all these stories, what I see, at least online, is yes, this is doing a lot to mobilize, I think, the left's base. I made a comment a few weeks ago about how the Portland situation fundamentally shifted at some point, and your ordinary, hashtag resistance types were showing up. Non-Antifa people, regular, sort of activist-y Democrat types. People who are very establishment friendly, the types of folks who would follow the Krasenstein brothers on Twitter. These folks don't seem to mind the violence because they can sort of rationalize it away in a partisan manner and say, well, the right-wingers are the real aggressors, and so everything that we do, whether it's, smashing up an old person's car or burning down a courthouse, that's self-defense. But the people who aren't going to be won over by this argument are not, existing people of the left. This is not going to push, Democrat voters to vote for Trump or something ridiculous like that, but it might activate the politically uninitiated, the apolitical people, of which, there are many in America for good reason, because I really think that the politically active people overall are the dumb ones, not the apolitical types. I have much more respect for folks who don't participate in this circus and don't get all excited about rooting for Team Red or Team Blue. But this might be enough to get, a few people off the sidelines who are politically uninitiated, who are seeing mobs on TV blocking highways, beating up the elderly, or like back in Rochester when that young or older woman, I can't remember her age exactly, came out of her store in Rochester and said, hey, would you please stop beating my windows? And they beat her on the head with a 2x4 and then beat her husband. When ordinary, apolitical people see that, they might think, maybe this group who's doing all this and standing for this shouldn't have political power, and so maybe I should, get off the couch and actually vote to oppose this. Now, I don't think it's going to be any mass movement, but it doesn't take a mass movement when you're talking about initiating the politically uninitiated. If just a small fraction of people see that and think, maybe I should vote for Trump or something, even though I don't necessarily think that is a reasonable way of ending all this, that could make a big difference for old Trumpy. Because as much as I look at this situation and say, like, wow, Trump's president, all this is still happening, so you can't really say that electing Trump, will make it go away. I don't think that, most people will look at what's happening on the news and see left-wingers in the streets, shouting F Trump, and Black Lives Matter and blocking highways and think, this is Trump's fault. It just takes a certain it's a certain leap you have to make to blame the riots in the streets on Trump himself. And so once the left has been blamed in the eyes of the American people for what's going on, when stuff like this happens in Austin, to where there's some kind of a gray area, to where they think, okay, well, was it the person in the car or the person marching down the public street with a rifle slung over his shoulder who was the aggressor? Well, I think ordinary Americans are probably going to side with the driver who was just trying to get home or get to wherever they were going. People are not going to give the left-wingers the benefit of the doubt when time after time they have been proven to be the aggressors when they are going out and openly antagonizing people in the streets. They're not campaigning for their cause by knocking on doors and saying, hello, sir, could I just take a few moments of your time to discuss our Lord and Savior, Joe Biden? They're coming to your homes. They are, out in the streets, beating on your cars, demanding compliance. They want you to bow down to their cause. So with that said, if you get anything of value to this video, I'd appreciate you clicking that like button and sharing this video. And if you haven't already, please do subscribe, because I do upload every day and I'd hate to have you miss one. So I'll see you folks back here tomorrow.